Every time you correct your child, you're shaping who they believe they are. Stay until the end for one sentence that builds lifelong confidence. Welcome to Life with Kai, where we translate parenting research for you. Today is about identity. When your child spills something and you say, "You're so careless." You think you're correcting behavior, but their brain hears, "I am careless." Children build identity from patterns. Are you correcting behavior or defining character? Big difference. Patterns become belief. Separate the person from the behavior. Use, "That wasn't responsible" instead of "You're irresponsible." You are shaping belief, and belief shapes destiny. Subscribe for more science-backed parenting. You bring the consistency. I'll bring the science. Coffee earned. Developmental psychology shows children form self-concept from reflection. They look at you to understand themselves. This is what sociologists call the looking glass self. Before a child can define who they are, they look at your face, your words, and your reactions to see who you think they are. Your perception becomes their reality. If they repeatedly hear, "You're shy," "You're dramatic," "You're lazy," or "You're difficult," they don't just hear a correction, they internalize a definition. It becomes the voice in their head. In the developing brain, these labels create neural shortcuts. The brain stops asking, "How should I act?" and starts acting how a difficult person acts. Identity drives behavior, not the other way around. Even positive labels can trap growth. The smart one develops a paralyzing fear of failure because being not smart feels like losing their entire identity. The athletic one avoids new risks to protect their status. The quiet one stops speaking up because that's the role they've been assigned. Identity becomes a psychological cage. Here's the scary part. Children will often act in ways that reinforce a bad label just to maintain a consistent sense of self. If they believe they are the troublemaker, they will cause trouble to feel like themselves. Let's look at a micro example. Two kids fail a math test. Same event, two completely different identity outcomes based on the feedback loop. Child A hears, "You're just not good at math." They internalize deficiency. To them, the failure is permanent and personal. Their identity now includes bad at math. Child B hears, "You didn't prepare enough this time." They see strategy. The failure is temporary and external. Their identity remains capable learner, and the result is just data. The good news is that identity is malleable. Because of neuroplasticity, we can help them rewire these internal mirrors by shifting our language from character to process. Carol Dweck's research shows that when we praise the process, children develop a growth identity. They don't see themselves as fixed points, but as constant works in progress. If we labeled ourselves based on yesterday, most of us would permanently be over-caffeinated and slightly confused. Identity should be a launch pad, not a cage. We consolidate, investigate, and translate the research, so you don't have to. You bring the consistency. I'll bring the science. Maybe fewer dramatic cup color meltdowns too. See you in section 3. Coffee earned. Behavior is temporary. Identity feels permanent. This is one of the most important distinctions you will ever make as a parent. Instead of, "You're rude," shift to, "That behavior wasn't kind." This protects their self-concept while still correcting the action. Instead of, "You're lazy," shift to, "That effort wasn't your best." One is a definition of who they are, the other is just a data point on what they did. Research on growth mindset by Carol Dweck supports this shift. Children praised for effort show higher resilience and persistence. They aren't afraid to fail because failure isn't a reflection of their worth. Conversely, children labeled by traits, even smart or talented, often develop performance anxiety. They start avoiding new risks because they don't want to lose the label. If my identity is the smart one, what happens if I fail this test? Suddenly, I'm not me anymore. So I stop trying things where I might fail. My identity has become my prison. You're not just shaping outcomes, You're shaping the internal narrative. You're building the foundation for how they talk to themselves when you aren't in the room. Pattern interrupt. What story are they telling themselves when they're alone? Because that story came from somewhere. It started as your feedback loop. When we correct the behavior, we leave the character intact. This builds a child who can handle criticism because they know their mistakes aren't their identity. Dweck's studies show that process-based praise wires the brain for persistence. They learn that skill is built through effort, and effort is a choice they can always make. Your words are the pen that writes their earliest autobiography. Make sure you're describing their actions, but empowering their character. We consolidate, investigate, and translate the research, so you don't have to, because building confident kids starts with how we label their struggles. You bring the consistency, I'll bring the science. See you in section 4. Coffee earned. So how do we actually do this? How do we build a resilient identity from the ground up? It starts with 3 specific linguistic shifts. Shift 1. Separate the person from the behavior. This is about protecting their core identity while addressing their actions. In psychology, we distinguish between shame and guilt. Shame is the belief, I am bad. Guilt is the realization, I did something bad. Shame paralyzes. Guilt motivates change. Use, that wasn't responsible. Not, you're irresponsible. One is a label they have to carry. The other is a choice they can fix next time. Shift 2. Reflect strength back. We often spend so much time correcting the bad that we forget to mirror the good. This is called positive attunement. When you say, I saw you try again, or I noticed you stayed calm, you aren't just being nice. You are installing a sense of capability into their internal hard drive. They start to believe, I am a person who tries again. I am a person who can stay calm. That belief becomes the engine for future behavior. Shift 3. Normalize the struggle. We have to teach them that difficult does not mean impossible. It just means new. Instead of, you're bad at this, say, you're still learning. That one word, still, is a psychological game changer. It signals that progress is inevitable. Research shows children who internalize this growth-based identity show stronger executive function and emotional regulation. Why? Because they don't see struggle as a threat. It's a powerful loop. Belief drives effort. Effort drives skill. Skill builds confidence. And confidence ultimately reshapes their entire identity. When we protect their identity during a struggle, we keep their nervous system regulated. A regulated child can learn, a shamed child can only defend. You are building the scaffolding for their entire life. Every sentence is a brick in the foundation of who they believe they are. We consolidate, investigate, and translate the research, so you don't have to. Because building identity is the ultimate long game. You bring the consistency, I'll bring the science. See you in the final section. Coffee earned. Let's fast forward, because parenting isn't about today. It's about the adult you are currently building. Labels don't just fade, they echo. Age 6. You call them dramatic. You think you're just describing a tantrum, but they're hearing a definition of their emotional worth. This is the Pygmalion effect. We tend to live up to the expectations others have of us. If a child believes they are dramatic, they stop trying to regulate because dramatic is just who they are. Age 12. They start to suppress emotion. They've learned that their big feelings are a problem, so they shut down to avoid the label. Age 18. They struggle with expression. They don't have the tools to communicate what's inside because they've spent a decade hiding it. Age 25. They struggle in relationships. The label dramatic has become a self-fulfilling prophecy of emotional instability or complete detachment. Labels echo. But there is another path. Let's look at the same child, but with a different narrative. Same behavior, different labels. Age 6. You're learning emotional control. You've labeled the process, not the person. You've given them a skill to master, not a cage to live in. By age 12, they aren't suppressing, they're practicing. They know that big feelings are just part of the learning curve. They stay in learning mode instead of survival mode. Age 18, they tolerate discomfort. They can sit with hard emotions because they know those emotions don't define them. They are resilient adults in the making. Age 25. They communicate clearly. They have a secure identity and the emotional intelligence to navigate the world. Same child, different narrative, different future. We consolidate, investigate, and translate the research, so you don't have to. You are not just raising behavior, you are shaping belief, and belief shapes destiny. That concludes our week on identity. Next week, we're talking regret, the quiet parenting decisions that echo 15 years later. Subscribe to stay in the loop. You bring the consistency, I'll bring the science. Maybe fewer dramatic cup color meltdowns too. Coffee earned. See you next time.
In part 1, we talked about why kids often melt down after good days, why home becomes the place where big emotions finally spill out, and why those moments aren't disrespect, they're trust. Now we're going deeper, because once emotions explode, parents usually ask the same question, what do I do right now? To answer that, we need to understand what's happening in the brain during a meltdown. A meltdown isn't random. It follows a predictable neurological pattern, like a wave. First, there's a trigger, then a rapid emotional rise, then a peak, and finally, a natural fall. Research shows the intense emotional surge itself lasts about 90 seconds. That's it. What extends meltdowns isn't the emotion, it's what happens around the emotion. Talking too much, correcting, lecturing, threatening consequences. All of that keeps the nervous system activated. During a meltdown, the thinking part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is offline. That means logic doesn't land. Explanations don't register. Lessons don't stick. So when we say, use your words, calm down, stop crying, you're okay, the brain literally cannot process it. Instead, it hears threat, pressure, or confusion, and the emotional wave grows taller. Most parents do this, and it makes sense. We try to fix it, we explain, we reason, we negotiate, we distract, because we are regulated. But our regulation doesn't automatically transfer to our child, unless we slow down. During the emotional peak, your job is not to teach. Your job is to co-regulate. That means stay close, stay calm, say very little. Simple phrases work best. I'm here. You're safe. This is hard. That's it. Not because kids deserve a pass, but because brains need safety before learning. When we stopped over-talking with Kai, meltdowns shortened dramatically, not instantly, but consistently. Here's something most parents underestimate. Your posture, tone, and breathing regulate your child faster than your words. If your body is tense, your child feels it. If your voice is sharp, their brain hears danger. If you're rushing them to calm down, the nervous system resists. When we slowed our bodies down, even before our words, Kai followed. Regulation is contagious. Calm down feels reasonable. But neurologically, it's impossible in the moment. It's like telling someone to stop shivering in the cold. What kids need first is understanding. This is critical. Validation is not agreement. You can validate feelings without approving behavior. For example, I see you're really upset. I won't let you hit. Both can exist at the same time. Boundaries stay firm. Connection stays intact. We consolidate, investigate, and translate the research, so you don't have to. And the research shows emotional regulation is taught through experience, not instruction. After the emotional wave passes, there's a calm window. This is where learning happens. This is when you can say, that was really hard earlier. Next time, let's try this. Short, simple, supportive. We started waiting for this moment, and cooperation improved. In part 3, we'll talk about why some kids melt down more than others, and the sensory overload. How sensory overload plays a role, and the one sentence that can shorten meltdowns dramatically when used correctly. This isn't about stopping emotions, it's about teaching kids how to move through them. If this part helped you understand your child better, you're already doing something right. You're learning how the brain actually works, and that changes everything.